The average solo GP is dead. Being handcuffed to a practice that only makes money while you're drilling crushes your freedom. Being trapped at the office is no way to experience life. And doing more fillings and crowns ain't the answer to freedom. Stop it. Freedom comes when your practice makes money without you. Freedom is choosing how many days and how you dental. Ready to forge your freedom? Then keep listening to become a super GP and super CEO. This is the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Let's go.
Hello, all you beautiful people out there. Welcome to what's sure to be the best episode of the Titanium Practice Podcast yet. I am your host and personal freedom coach, Dr. Stephen Freeman. How y'all doing today? I hope you're all doing great out there. Spring has finally sprung. You know, the weather's finally getting a whole lot warmer out there. People can finally stop worrying about putting on all the mittens and gloves and all that stuff for all the folks who live up north. And I remember as a kid what a absolute pain that was to have to get bundled up in order to go outside. So it's nice just to be able to head outside and not have to worry about all those things. But speaking about being a kid and seeing the snow, that's what we do in my house or my family for spring break, is we actually end up going somewhere cold. I did have fun going out into the snow as a kid. I remember having fun once you actually got all the stuff on and heading out and doing stuff. That was always a great time. But I remember enjoying the snow once you finally got it all on. And I wanted my kids to be able to have that and experience it every once in a while of knowing what snow was. A lot of their friends have never, ever actually played in the snow since we live here in Florida. They've never been able to experience it. But I just remember the good times of being able to sled down the hill, go ice skating and things like that on a natural frozen pond. And it was very cool and something very different than what they get to experience here. It's pool season 9-ish months out of the year around here. So we get to swim a whole lot more, but not really get to play in the snow a whole bunch. So every year around spring break, we like to get on the jet and head on out west. Sometimes, actually my next plan is to maybe go up to like Vermont and see what that's all about next spring break, just to do something a little bit different. This time we headed out to Park City, Utah. Very, very pretty. It was a great time. Kids were able to go sledding right down the back of the condo that we were staying at. It was a really great time. One of the days we actually did a snowmobile tour, and we've done this before, and it's great because you do it and then you think you're amazing at doing it, and we're going through, and this one was actually, a lot of the trails were actually narrower, especially when we went up into some of the higher elevations and to the mountains. The paths were a whole lot narrower than what I'm used to, honestly. And so, being the great snowmobile driver that I am, I'm not worried about it. We're going around things, but we come up over a hill, and I've got my daughter with me. She's the one riding my partner in the back there. We come up over this hill, and I couldn't really see through the snow and the windshield there, and the path went off to the right. Well, I went off to the left. And so I managed to go down a mountain and flip my snowmobile with my daughter screaming as we did it, and flung her off the back, and the snowmobile flipped over on top of us and ended up a good 50 feet down the hill. And it was not great, Bob. I'm not gonna lie. No one really was hurt. My daughter ended up falling on a bush and she got a scrape, but no one was hurt. But I remember her screaming. Obviously the first thing I did is, after I, turned around and looked at her, I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I thought I was gonna die." And, through the lens of an 8-year-old of what actually happened, I could totally believe why she thought that was gonna happen. But reality, was really no big deal, other than the fact of trying to flip the snowmobile back over and doing this in, there were banks of snow with 3+ feet, I don't know, went up to my hip, and just trying to get leverage to flip that thing over and to right it to go back up the hill. That was a workout, and I work out every day, but that was that was a workout to try to get that thing flipped over and headed back up the hill. So I say this all to say that was, I told my daughter, actually, this was just shortly after the halfway point, and originally my wife had asked if my daughter wanted to switch so that my son could go with me and her with my wife. I just said, no, I'll just stay here with Dad, and immediately afterwards, I'm like, I bet you wish you had gone with Dad. But I told her, we've gone on snowmobiling trips a number of times, and I said, well, if nothing exciting really ever happened on any of them, then it just becomes, just someday she'll look back on her memories and it'll just be this one big memory of, yeah, we used to go snowmobiling. But then I told her, I was just like, you shouldn't be scared that happened. You should be excited that happened, because now that's a great memory. I mean, that's a great story to be telling versus, anybody who's ever been on a snowmobile probably does fine and they just go through the paths and the mountains and all that stuff and everything turns out absolutely fine. You have a good time, but you don't really have too much to share about it when you're all done. Well, now she's got something to share about it. She literally thought she was going to die, even though, again, she was really never in any danger. But that's a much better story at that point in time. But as I started to say, the reason I'm bringing this all up is pretty simple. And that is the fact I was thinking about this of like, we've gone a bunch of times, everything went absolutely fine, and then a shit show happened. And it happens. And think about that in your dental office as well. How many times have you done a crown now? I mean, too many to count. You have no idea how many crowns you've done, but you can absolutely remember times where, man, either it was the patient or maybe it was even you, it was the patient and you, maybe it's the assistant, whatever, that there's just these times you can't get the crown to seat. Maybe it's the margins, maybe it's the patient not liking the aesthetics, maybe it broke while you're checking occlusion. You're just like, you lost the whole buccal or lingual side of the thing while you're checking occlusion. And you can't get it done. And it's, it's like so you re-impress and they come back and something now is different about it. And so like what would have worked before is not working this time. You re-impress again. And at this point in time, the patient's already had it with you. I mean, they don't, you get these good ones that, you can do whatever and they're perfectly fine. And then you get these other patients where one tiny little thing goes wrong and it's like the end of the world, the absolute end of the world. And somehow when you need to re-impress multiple times on a patient, it's almost always on that patient. It's crazy. I do not understand how that works. Of like, you can go all this time without having any problems, and then all your problems are concentrated on this one person. You just cannot seem to get their crown right. And it feels like an absolute disaster on your hands. And yet you finally get it seated, it works out. It always works out. Well, here's the thing. In dental school, we were not taught to do specialty procedures. We were taught to fill out a referral pad and send that patient on down the road to have their specialty work done. Doesn't matter if it's implants, ortho, endo, whatever. Like, you are taught to just refer those patients out and not to keep that stuff in office. Do you know why? Because of the fact that they're afraid of you screwing it up. They're also trying to protect what theirs as well, which is a whole nother story. But there are times that you are going to screw up any procedure. This lady came in recently at my office, great associate. I love my associates. They're fantastic. No bad thing to possibly say about them. But this lady came back in fourth time that this MO on number 3 has come out. I mean, believe me, I know it's happened to you. So don't go passing judgment on her because it's the 4th time that it came out. You just look at it. You start to say, was my prep too small? Should I do this? It doesn't matter. It happens. It's dentistry. It's working on people. Shit is absolutely going to happen. It happens. And that's fine. And then you get through it and you move on, and you may have a pissed off patient, but that's fine. You move on, you learn, and you're going to do something differently next time you go to do it. The point is yes, if you get into placing implants, you are going to have implants fail. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I mean, it's just, there's no two ways about it. You're going to have implants that don't integrate. You're going to go try to place an implant and you're not going to get the torque value you want, which, by the way, as long as you have a little bit of stability, even have what's called a spinner, just cover it up, let it sit. It will almost assuredly integrate. Now, you may want to give it a little bit more time to integrate, but at the same time, it's going to integrate. When these were originally done, like when implants first came out, they were just a cylinder. That's it. They had no taper to them to get torque. They were just cylinders and you put them in. I used to place Bicon implants. Not a thing. I have nothing. Some of you probably out there like, I'll never place a Bicon implant because they're too short, blah, 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 blah. I placed a bunch of Bicon implants and my success rate was great with them. The only reason I stopped working with them is they were a whole lot more cumbersome to work with. I mean, they want you to, when you do the osteotomy, it's totally different than a traditional implant. So what they want you to do, you go really slow, there's no irrigation because what you're actually doing is harvesting the bone that you take out. So you're still making an osteotomy and you're taking bone out. But when you go to put the thing in, you literally hold it by a plastic plug, you put it into the space and you clip the plastic plug and you take that harvested bone and you put it back on the top of it, you seal it up. It's almost always two-stage surgeries that you're doing with those, which, I mean, it works. At the end of the day, you probably do have more success with two-step surgeries than you do doing a single step and putting a healing abutment on top of it. But man, it's so much work to have to go back to numb them up, you know, another tissue punch, maybe you got to get bone off the top of it. I mean, it becomes this whole other surgery. And so there probably is more success in doing two-stage, but there's just, what do you lose in time in the chair because of the fact that you got to go back and uncover this thing? So I'm a big fan. I do it single step almost always. You get a little bit of torque, preferably I get it up over 30. You put a healing abutment on it and that's it. And then you can turn almost the whole thing over at that point in time. There's very little you need to be doing at that point in time. But those Bicons, they worked. Even though they were short, they worked and they did have bone growth over the top of it. And it's the very, very, very few implants that you actually see you gain bone over the top of an implant, and you did with a Bicon implant. So nothing bad to say there, other than to say it was very cumbersome surgery, and I would much prefer to see us doing something that is much more, it's difficult to integrate that into the general dentistry practice versus being able to do something fast, like being able to place a premolar implant in about 5 minutes and a molar in 7 to 10 minutes or something like that. It's so much faster to do than that. But the point is you're gonna have implants fail. You're gonna have root canals that you cannot find all the canals. You know you're missing a canal and you cannot find it. That's fine. Stop. Apologize to the patient. Just be upfront with the patient. That is the number one thing you could probably even take out of this video, is just always be truthful with the patient. The vast, vast majority of people know stuff happens. They know it, and it stinks. They don't want it to happen. But if you are always doing things in the patient's best interest, you're going to win every time. You're going to win every time. And it may not feel like in the moment you're winning, because there are going to be people who are pissed. There are. But again, that lady was pissed about her fillings. And think about how much, gosh, I don't even know what the fee was for that filling, but we've lost our absolute asses on that filling at this point in time. I mean, to have to redo it 4 times and bring them in, patient trust. I mean, forget the money. Yeah, patient trust, more so than even the money on the whole thing. It's just, I mean, it's crazy to think that a simple filling that you feel like you could do with your eyes closed right now can just be, I mean, it turns into a disaster. Which you're going to have disasters too when you work on specialty patients, okay? It's going to happen. Don't be afraid of it though. It's happening in your general dentistry part of it, where you're making fractions of pennies on the same amount of time. You could be making 4x to 20x the amount of revenue doing a specialty procedure. I mean, if you're going to screw up, which you're going to screw up, you might as well screw up making more money. I always did that. Whenever I was going, if I was lost, some people like to go slow when they're lost and they're gone. No, I want to go fast, because if I'm going to be lost, then let's be lost and do it and figure it out and get turned around and go back the other way. And let's just go, okay? So at the end of the day, you need to be aware of that. And one of the great things I talk about, ortho, you should 1,000% being doing ortho in your office. These class 1 cases are so easy. Look for the class 1 occlusion cases. They're so easy to do. You don't really need to do anything. The work is all done by your nickel titanium wire. It's just going to remember the fact that it wants to be a U, and it's going to make a U. And then you eventually have assistants that are trained up in this stuff to help you do this. They're going to do all the work. We literally have this joke in our office about our orthodontist, about how all his job is to do is to come in and give fist bumps every 8 weeks. That's what the orthodontist does in our office. He gives fist bumps every 8 weeks. Now, obviously, he's looking at some stuff behind the scenes, looking to see how the patient is tracking and the teeth are moving and things like that. But then the assistant is the one who does the work of changing out, the O-rings, changing out maybe into a new wire or something like that. But again, that's why when I talk about in my book, we talk about the idea of using self-ligating brackets. So you don't even have to, closing a little window it takes no effort at all. You could give that to your kid to do. I'm going to put the wire in, and then I want you, little kid, to come through and just close every single one of those windows up. It's stupid easy to do. And you're just sending it down the road right now because you don't know how easy it is. And the thing is so every once in a while you do have to move a bracket, especially when you get towards the finishing detailing and towards the end. And you may say, I need to move this bracket to the mesial. And you move it to the mesial and you do a little little hook on it to try to get it to spin a certain direction. And they come back and you thought the thing was going to spin to the mesial and it ended up spinning distal. Well, do you know what you need to do? Move the bracket to the distal and do your little hook and it'll work. But everyone knows ortho is going to take so long that they don't question it. They don't, obviously you made a misjudgment on what you needed to do, but the patient's fine. The rest of their teeth are getting straightened out. We're moving towards a finish. It's okay if maybe we cost ourselves a month in that time to learn that in the future, no, in this particular situation, I learn it and I actually need to put the bracket more towards the distal rather than the mesial. Then I'm just creating a scenario here, but the point is people think ortho is going to take so long anyways, they won't notice the fact if a particular tooth is going to take another month. And the cool thing is that I have done ortho in the office where we're trying to get a patient finished. Like they needed to be done for a wedding. This has to be done now because we got our wedding in a week. So this needs to be done, and you can actually, teeth get so wiggly, and that's the other thing. There's a nugget for you there too. When you're doing ortho, even if it's Invisalign, if you're moving teeth, some of them can get crazy wiggly. And the first time you see it, you freak out and you're like, oh my gosh, is this person gonna lose all of their teeth? No, they're not. But the cool thing is for these people who need stuff done now, I need it done right now for this wedding or whatever it is, you can actually move it in the chair. That's how wiggly these teeth get when they're in ortho. So let's say you did make something again, just using that scenario, you put the bracket towards the mesial rather than the distal, it spins it the exact opposite way you want. You can probably fix it in the chair in that moment if you feel like you're costing the patient a month, which you're probably not, because there's still other detailing and finishing that needs to be done elsewhere, because you need to be checking your contacts, make sure you have nice spacing, nothing's getting caught up on it. So you probably actually didn't cost the patient a month. That tooth may have taken it a month, but you could do it right then, there in that chair. It's crazy. Until you do it, you don't know that you can do it. But the point is that things are going to go wrong. You're going to make a clinical misjudgment about how to move that tooth, and you can change it, and it'll change instantly in that moment, okay? But going back to the endo idea, if I can't find this canal, that's fine. Write out a referral, send them on down the road. But you can absolutely be keeping at least 80% of the specialty stuff in your office. It's so much more valuable, and then that's where freedom comes from when you're able to do these higher dollar procedures and they take up so much less chair time than what you're doing to try to do a crown. I would be interested to know, what is your normal time for doing a crown? Because right now my associates block off 2 hours. The damn temp is going to come off, and then we got a seat appointment that they block off another hour for. So they block off a total of 3 hours, not including if a temp comes off, to get a crown done. I'll admit, when I used to do my crowns, I was a CEREC guy back in the day, and that's the next thing we're going to be talking about soon is I'm getting into 3D printing, and I'm really, really, really excited about that. We would get them out of the office an hour and a half with their crown seated. And so my office has gone from an hour and a half to deliver a crown in one appointment to 3 hours to deliver a crown over potentially many appointments. and it creates inefficiencies. And as an owner, especially an owner operator, you need to look at some point in time at those inefficiencies that are happening in your office to really crank up the profitability of the practice. But you can't do that and know that and look into that or make the investment in the technology to make that all happen for you until you've got the time to look at that. We don't have the time to look at it until you've increased your revenue, you've increased the amount of time you have available to look at these things. So again, that's where I go back to, you got to raise revenue first before you can do things like dropping insurances, before you've got the time to really find, and tighten the screws on things so you can make a huge difference in your practice from very, very small things. I've said it before, small hinges swing big doors. And the more you can really drive down on those things and fix those things, it makes your practice wildly profitable. But it takes time. And you need to know what you're looking for, and you don't know what you're looking for until you've got the time to know what you're looking for. So we're creating time. That's where we get on this whole thing about creating time so you can focus on those things. But there's even little simple things that you can be doing right now. We have a course available for you of showing you how to do a crown prep in 5 minutes. I don't know what you're all doing there. I don't know what they need 2 hours to prep a crown for. And I tease them about it. I tease my own associates about it. I'm just like, what in the earth are you taking so long with this patient for? I don't know what it is. I think I do a pretty nice crown prep. I do it in about 5 minutes. The patient's gone and done and it's taken care of. But if you know what you're thinking through the process of how to get the crown done and make it look right, and you have the end result in mind as you're prepping it, I mean, the way they teach you in dental school how to prep a crown is it's crazy. I mean, it's literally the longest way you can possibly take to prep a crown. And so if you never learn another way to do it, or you don't take the chance to try to learn how to do it in another way that's faster, then you can't free your time up. So that's another great way to free up time, is learn how to prep a crown faster. Prep a crown faster. I'm like, if you, I don't know, if you're taking 2 hours and I give you an hour back right now of your chair time because you're able to prep a crown faster, what would that be worth to you? What would that be worth to you? And I got a video course in all of this at Titanium Practice that shows you how to prep a crown in 5 minutes. Now, obviously, we still got to do things like, I just had to turn off the low battery sign. Sorry about that. Now, obviously, you've got to do some things ahead of time, but you in the practice, or you in the operatory, are only going to take about 5 minutes to do this whole thing. And that's all you really should be in there for. And heck, if you've got a hygienist who's sitting around doing nothing and they can numb in your state, go get them numb so you can just walk in and be done. Be done with it. So, I mean, there are all sorts of ways to make sure that you are saving time and increasing revenue and getting time back. Because if you could save an hour of chair time, if you could cut the amount of time you're cutting a crown in half, well, in theory, you can do twice as many crowns in a week. And I'm not going to say you're going to have that many patients to do it. And that's where marketing comes in. And that's another thing you can focus on then when you've got the time to do it. But if I could take you from whatever, you're practicing, dentaling right now 4 or 5 days a week, and we can drop a whole day off of that because you now have more time to do your crowns, that's where progress comes in. And that's what we can show you to do, okay? But again, this all kind of comes back to that beginning story about the fact of I did something that I found to be very fun but routine in doing, going snowmobiling. It was a great time, it was fun, but then disaster struck. I totally screwed up, and I screw up sometimes when I'm placing implants too. It happens. That's the whole saying of it's the practice of dentistry. Okay? But you can't be afraid to do that because you think it's different screwing up doing a specialty procedure than it is screwing up doing general dentistry, because you're screwing up general dentistry in times too. I'm not saying all the time, I'm just saying it happens, and you know it happens. It's just when you're dealing with people, things are going to happen. It's just the nature of what it is. And that's okay, but I don't want you to be thinking that it's different to screw up doing general dentistry than it is to screw up doing specialty work. It's no different. It's just making more money while you screw up. That's That's really the only difference behind it. So you might as well be making more money while you're upset about screwing something up than making less money and screwing something up. Okay? So anyways, those are kind of my thoughts that I have for you today. Please get into the specialty game. It will create your freedom for you. You will have more fun doing dentistry because doing specialty work is just more fun. There's no two ways about it. It's cooler, it's funner, it's faster, and you make a whole lot more money. I mean, you can't do better than that. All right? So get into the specialty game. We've got the resources available for you at Titanium Practice. Please go to titaniumpractice.com, sign up for our insider newsletter. I cannot make enough videos to get all the content that I need to get out to y'all, and that newsletter allows me to be able to get out more content faster to you. So head on over to titaniumpractice.com, sign up for the insiders newsletter. It's free. Just get it in your inbox, get more information so we can get you closer to freedom, which is what I'm dedicated to doing. I am dedicated to forging your freedom. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Head on over to titaniumpractice.com. Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Please hit the like and subscribe button and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Titanium Practice. Questions or comments? Send an email to info@titaniumpractice.com. Join us next time to help turn your average practice into a titanium practice.